From the Black Swan Media Studios, deep inside a secret underground bunker, we're speaking to freedom-loving patriots from all around the country and the world. Welcome to the Resistance. This is John Crump, live.
And it is me. And for everyone out there just wondering, my pirate couch is being delivered on Saturday. It's not the original couch, but it is a couch that replaces the couch that pirates stole, which is kind of an interesting story here. Let me go ahead and bring on my co-host of the day, Flying Rich. How are you doing? Rich, can you hear me?
Good. So no Somali pirates delivering your couch?
No, you are pixelated like crap, buddy. You look like you're on a potato.
Am I in 8-bit land?
You're in 8-bit land and you look like you're from a Hong Kong movie.
I might need a reboot here.
Rich always needs a reboot of his equipment because Rich buys all his stuff off of AliExpress for $5 or Alibaba.
Temu.
Yeah. And if we are also joined by Rick Vasquez, who is very knowledgeable of the ATF and what the ATF does, but he fights for our side. If you don't know who Rick is, Rick worked. Basically, you were the acting head of Fat D for a while, right?
Correct. I had both positions for 18 months.
And with the bump stock stuff, you have insight knowledge on that because you reviewed the bump stock originally.
Correct. Remember what I said, that it was going to go through.
Yeah, you said it was not going to be, it's not a machine gun, which is right, but they tried to use Chevron and all this other stuff and to redefine it, violated the APA and everything else, which you on this channel have stated you figured that's the way it was going to go.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, towards the end, I started getting a little bit nervous, because, having testified now against the government a handful of times, and I testified for the government, numerous times, and I realize that the courts defer so much to the government experts, and you and I can be sitting up there together, side by side. You're the government expert, and you say, well, I think it's a machine gun. I get up there and say 1 through 10, technically, blah, 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 it's not a machine gun. And all of a sudden they just defer, the jury will believe you because you are supposed to be telling the truth. You are supposed to be knowledgeable. You're the government expert. But I've learned that it's not the case.
And they don't know how to take apart a Glock.
Correct.
Rick, do you know how to take apart a Glock?
I do, and I know what he did. You guys know how a Glock autosear works?
Yeah.
Well, you remember the little sear drops down into the lower receiver, and you have to cut a little notch with a square file or a round file, so you can force it together because the front is at an angle, but coming back it's a square. So he forced it together. And then under the camera, he didn't realize what he had done, and he's trying to take it apart. And you can't take it apart just like he did, manhandling it, looking goofy and everything like that. But that's the problem. You just cut a little slot so it can go in and out on its own.
Yeah. So, do you think the guy just got nervous, or he just didn't know what he was doing?
Well, he was an agent. He wasn't from Farms Technology Branch. And I think a couple of things. I think he wanted to impress everybody because he was the agent in charge and he had the director Delbach there. And so he didn't want to say, hey, let me bring a technician along with me to take a little bit of my thunder away. I want all this thunder. So he puts it together and then he cannot take it apart because, a technician would have said, oh, I know what the heck's going on. Let me separate the slide, force it apart a little bit, and then pull it back.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, I think, was their choice to bring an agent instead of someone from technology branch.
I see that a lot anymore.
Why is that? I've noticed that too. That was my next question.
I think that because the agents bring the case, we're in the background, but I can honestly say when I worked for ATF, I worked for a lot of phenomenal guys, and literally they brought me around the world to do different things when it came to technical wise. They asked me to jump on a plane to Mexico, South America, anywhere because it's technical, and they didn't want to sit there. ATF looks better as a whole, regardless of who does it, if it's done correctly, right? But if you're on a showboat and you do it incorrectly, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, that is true. Talking to a couple people that used to work at Fat D that were not anti-gun, it seems like a lot of them have left because it seems like the people in charge, instead of being like true gun guys or whatever, they're being replaced by political lackeys. At least that's what I've been told.
Well, I know a lot of what's going on there, and I'm not going to mention any names or some of the stuff that's happening because obviously there's investigation going on the gentleman that was relieved. But it's very easy when you work for a government agency and you get given all this authority and notoriety. It's so easy to step into a realm where you think just because you have the title, you know more than everybody, or you have more authority than everybody. So you get some of these young guys, call them bucka roosters, because they get their little roosters all feathers all standing up straight. And all of a sudden, they're telling these gentlemen who have been studying guns per se. I'll give you two good examples. I'll mention good guys, Dan Shea and Bob from U.S. Ordnance. I used to talk to these guys when I was with ATF. I conferred with them. I trusted them. They knew that if they said, "Hey, Rick, well, you asked us this question. Now I want you to do this for me," then I would tell them unequivocally, "Hell no." So if an obscure weapon, we didn't have a book on it or anything like that, you call these two guys and they knew it off the top of their head. You just give them a description and you're like, holy crap. So now I'm a 30-something-year-old and I'm in charge of writing reports and putting people in jail. And all of a sudden in my mind, and this is the mentality, I know more than Dan Shea, Bob, all these guys, because I'm in charge. And may know more on the regulatory and the statute side, but you sure as hell don't know more about guns. And that's the way I always looked at whatever I did in any capacity I did. I'll always be replaced. There's someone always better than me. And there's somebody who can teach me something. And if you look at this capacity in that manner, then you'll always have, a little bit of humility.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need.
Like John and I both work in tech, and I like to. I'm sorry, John. I think it's always a good thing not to be the smartest person in the room, because that means you can learn something.
Exactly. If you're not
So
the
that's
smart
what I think has happened. That these young guys have gotten so full of themselves because they've been given so much authority.
Mm-hmm. Now, something I've said quite frequently, the way the ATF is run, if motor vehicle was run the same way, you'd have a bunch of people that hated cars and wouldn't let you register cars. Is that accurate? And was it different when you were there?
I think some of the differences when I got hired in '99, and I got hired by two absolute legends in the technology field. That's Ed Owen and Kurt Bartlett. I mean, just both were, Ed Owen served in the Army, Kurt Bartlett served in the Navy. They grew up in the firearms community. Ed Owen used to work at Inner Arms for the bandit's name? I can't think of his name, but Ed Owen grew up working for him in high school, and this is what their lineage was. So these are the guys that trained me, and they were throwing stuff at me. Hey, go write a paper on this. I didn't even know what they were talking about, and they would just, I had to go get the books, do a research paper, and that's the way they trained me. And the training is still the same way, but I appreciated their knowledge so much. I really looked up to these guys, and also the senior leadership team, the senior agents. These guys were, still some of the moonshine guys that were running the agencies. Real gunfighters.
That's funny. Yeah,
So,
I didn't even think about that.
and so you hear these stories about, hey, so and so, he got caught in a corner against 10, 15 guys, and he just walked straight into them with a shotgun, pumping lead at them. So you hear these stories about these guys. So what can you do? But respect them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But when you were in the ATF, was it a bunch of guys that liked guns, enjoyed guns, and just wanted to make sure good guys had guns and bad guys got prosecuted? Was that it, or?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because see, in our role in the technology branch, we really didn't have any input on prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
Give me this, and then we wrote a report on what it was based on the Gun Control Act and on the National Firearms Act and any statute that pertained to it. We didn't say, well, I've got to make it fit this category because they're going to prosecute him. And if I can't make it fit this category, then they cannot prosecute him. So
Mm-hmm.
I never felt any pressure on, and now I can honestly say we wrote up evaluations that didn't fit what they needed, and guys would be pissed off and scream and call you up and say, well, tell me what happened. Why? Because they wanted to know, but never had that call where, well, why can't you make it a machine gun?
So would a drawing on a piece of paper of an auto sear be a machine gun?
Well, I will still go back and say I offered my services to that team, and they elected not to talk to me.
Yeah.
Ouch. Ouch. And for everybody that just did not connect the dots at that moment, that was the CRS Matt Hoover auto keycard case that he commented on.
And remember what I said. They believe the government experts.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it seems like the government experts sometimes have more weight behind their voices than they really should.
Absolutely. Absolutely, they do.
Now, when you ruled on bump stocks, did you get any pushback of people saying, "Hey, you got to make this a machine gun"?
Um, let me. I'm trying to make sure I say this correctly. On the Aikens accelerator, you're not going to believe this, but there was a group in council that did not want to call it a machine gun, and that became and myself and the young man I'd assigned it to and my branch chief all agreed that the Aikens was a machine gun. And whether you agree with it or not, you look at it in simple terms, it was a very simple machine because it had the hydraulics were an operating principle. Because once you pull the trigger, the hydraulics operated the stock back and forth. Where the bump stock or the slide fire, as it was originally called, had nothing to give it any energy, only itself. And it had to, you as a person, had to manipulate it, hold it properly, or it wouldn't work. Because, the big demonstration that we use is let go of the stock and pull the trigger. What does it do? It fires one shot. Let go of the Aikens and pull the trigger, and it continues to go because it's got its own energy. So that's why it was classified as a non-machine gun. And I will tell you this, there was such concern that I will not mention his name, but I still work with him today. He's a former senior member of the executive staff, took that all the way to Senator Feinstein's office to say, we need to make you aware of what we have just classified, and we're not calling this a machine gun. This went all the way up to the director's office, and a lot of input on it. And they all agreed with us. It was not a machine gun. No way, no how. Now, years later, it got lost. And when the director was called on the Hill, he did not even know what it was, the director at the time. And that's not uncommon because it gets sold, and a new guy goes up the chain of command, and he gets promoted, and he doesn't know everything that qualified. And so that's where the confusion came in. That thing was highly, highly vetted, and everybody in the chain of command knew that it was not going to be called a machine gun.
Now, when Trump stated ban them, did you think that Fat D was going to reclassify it?
Well, Fat D didn't reclassify it. That's a misconception.
Yeah, you're right. It was a rule change.
They wrote a regulation to change the
they wrote a
definition of
regulation.
machine gun because
You're
it can't
absolutely
write
right.
a law. And
I mean, I didn't mean to say Fat D. I meant to say the ATF.
and that's cool because they probably supported it. So who knows? So they wrote a regulation because remember, Director Brandon was on the Hill, and he told Congress, this is not a machine gun. There's nothing we can do about it. Then he came back and said, we found a way to reclassify it. And so somebody had suggested, hell, let's just change a statute with a regulation. Can't we do that? We're the ATF. So they wrote a regulation that was stronger than the statute that Congress had written for the Gun Control Act. And as we now know,
basically, so we got a couple of questions here. I have a couple of questions with regards to this. Did you hear the questioning from Sotomayor and Kagan and then read their dissent?
I listened to it, because it wasn't very long. It was not very long. And I kind of got nervous when I was listening to it. And I don't know if you guys saw this. You all know who Stephen Holbrook is, right?
Yes. He's a really good. He written some really good books. He's a lawyer. He's actually in the DC area, I believe.
Well, he called me out after the Supreme Court talk and discussion was over, and what's that book that he writes on Valkyrie or something like that? And he wrote an article that said they should have just listened to what Rick Vasquez said, that he's written the best interpretation, because he was really concerned about the discussion, that the government had done such a good job, and he was really concerned. But he did say it wasn't great, but it was good enough. And he had called that out because he asked me, has anybody spoken to you about this lately? I said, I wrote the declaration on the Michigan trial, for MAC and the Military Arms Channel, and the GOA has that. I mean, I did it on their behalf. So
Yeah,
they've been using my language, so that language has been used in the demonstration, has been used. So I did listen to it, and some of it was concerning when they were trying to explain the way it operated. I think the government was the best presentation for the bump stock. When they talked about, oh, yes, your finger does come away, and oh, yes, you do have to hold it, in this manner. And that was a really good point. But I was really happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah. The first time I ever heard of Rick was actually, I was watching Vice News. And Rick was on Vice News saying, this was right after the bump stock got banned, and he was like, this is not a machine gun. It is still not a machine gun. And then you demonstrated how you can bump fire with a belt loop and everything else.
Because in reality, they were trying to outlaw bump fire. See, that was what this was about. It wasn't about the stock, because if you make the stock unlawful, does that mean when you go to the range and use your finger to bump fire, does your finger become a machine gun? Because that's what this was about.
Yeah, it definitely was. We have some questions here. I'm going to get to One Car Fast because he's asked like 8,000 times. Thank you, One Car Fast. I'm just messing with you. But he wants to know any updates on the FRT case. I think he's talking about National Association for Gun Rights versus Garland.
I have not been kept in the loop. As you know, I wrote a declaration for them, and I wrote the original opinion for them that called it not a machine gun. And then this has gone so far that their attorneys have not kind of kept us in the loop lately. So to answer your question, I don't really know where it's at right now. I understand that they're on very good footing, that it's not supposed to be a machine gun, but I don't know exactly. I you know what? I'll follow up with your attorneys this week, because I should know more about it than I do right now.
But in your opinion, so we have two types of triggers. There's binary triggers and there's force reset triggers, and the ATF has seemed to come after the FRTs. Do you see any difference?
My footprints are on all of those triggers. I did the Fostech, I did the Franklin. I was already out of ATF, and I sat down with them and evaluated them, wrote the letters, sent it in ATF, wrote the letter for FRT. He doesn't send his into ATF. He just starts selling it. I personally believe that ATF got a booger in their panties and said, you know what? You didn't submit this. We're going to call it a machine gun.
Oh, have you read my whole entire expose on exactly what happened? I got a bunch of internal ATF documents. I laid out exactly what happened with that. It wasn't even like anybody in Fat D. The guy that really drove it home was a low-level employee that bugged the hell out of everyone. And every time someone was like, yeah, okay, we'll look at it, he just wouldn't give up and kept on going to more places and more places. And then he finally found a special agent down in Florida that he was able to get to. But it was a guy that saw it on YouTube. It was a low-level employee who worked in DC who saw it on YouTube, who pushed it. I'll send you the articles. It's very.
His name?
I can get his name.
That's quite a story.
But
Yeah,
and that's why I look at it. Once they decided to look at it, and on the hearings, I didn't go to the hearings. They tried to deny the way it operates because it has a secondary disconnector, for lack of a better term. And when you first look at it, you think it's an automatic sear, but it isn't. It completely disconnects, and it has to be recocked to fire. And they called it an automatic trip, is what they called it. And they got caught on that. One of the other gentlemen that was working on it went to the hearings, and what happened was we were told we couldn't give any testimony to the hearings. So I didn't want to take any of their money, just fly down to Florida. Well, the other two gentlemen, one was in Florida, so they went to the hearings, and then they allowed him to speak after the judge said, no, we're not going to let anybody speak.
Robert Lopez.
Lopez?
Yeah.
I've never heard of him.
I'm telling you, he's a ATF intelligence research specialist who works out of Washington, D.C.
Probably a young guy. Somebody got hired way after I did.
Yeah, he is young. This was like a year after he started working there. He found a video on recoil.com. Recoil TV.
So that's basically,
wow.
They just called it, they interpreted the operating system incorrectly on purpose, in my opinion. They on purpose describe the way it operates, because if you describe it correctly and you know anything about the way a machine gun trigger operates, you know that it's not a machine gun. You know it's just an active resetting device.
Yeah, put it this way: this guy had such a hard on for getting this off the street that he kept on bugging them until May 24th. The ATF said, "Hey, look, we try to buy them; they've always sold out." So this guy took it upon himself to go on Gunbroker, buy 2 off Gunbroker himself, and then in June of that year shipped it to Fat D.
So did he get charged with possession of a machine gun?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's how much he wanted this. So it was basically one guy in the ATF that decided he didn't like it. He was going to do everything possible.
But all of them operate pretty much the same way. It's a reset that is done mechanically, but it is not a trip. And in a trip, you hold your finger down, and the trip, as the bolt goes forward, trips the bolt.
Gotcha.
Well, a forced reset, it forces your trigger forward, which allows the cocking and recocking to happen. And then because you have natural pressure, you pull the trigger again. No different than the bump stock. I'm sorry for my bad lights, but I just got moved into this new cubby. I just moved houses this week, and only thing I have unpacked is my laptop.
It's totally cool. It's totally cool. Yeah, we have another question out here from Ed Bender. Ed Bender, he emails me a lot. He actually does a lot of research on laws and ATFs. It sends me a lot of good stuff. So shout out to him. But he wants to know, how do you think the FAT-D process of interpreting items will change since Chevron deference is gone?
I don't think it'll change a bit, because Chevron deference pertains big picture to the agency. So they're going to write their interpretation of what they think they have. Then where it's going to affect ATF is, I think the FRT would be a good big picture of it, where 2 experts, myself, I just use myself as an example, could be somebody else, and let's say John Crump, go against each other. And John, of course, you're the government, and I'm no longer the government. And then they look at it, and I don't understand why judges don't do this more often. They say, okay, get your 2 experts up here and explain into the jury why it's this or why it's not this. And then the judge and the jury can see them and say, okay, well, it's obvious that the government's expert who's been working on machine guns for 6 months and was in the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts, and now he's writing his reports. Obviously, he's not an expert. That happened to me in a silencer trial in Florida. I went out against a government expert, and the judge, I was on the stand less than a minute when I was chastised. The jury was taken out, and I was told that I would only answer this, and this. So
Holy
how's he
cow.
going to defense? So this was on one of the what's the silencer components that are coming from China, the solvent traps.
Solvent.
Yes.
So go back out. They bring the jury. They didn't bring the jury until the next day. Right off the gate, I get chastised again. So that's where Chevron would be really important, because when everything that I said, they brought the government's expert back out to rebut me, and he just basically said that everything I said was a lie or untrue.
Wow.
Yes.
So in the case of a suppressor, you're saying that how the government is interpreting it, which would be Chevron, is
Okay, he's saying but what he was saying is never mind, you're back. Go ahead.
that however they're interpreting what a suppressor is now, which has changed, that's all based on Chevron, and that would be washed away.
Well, it's not, everything's not going to automatically be washed away.
Mhm.
It's just it's come up in the past where, let's say we're drawing short straws, and we can't really tell by eye which one is shorter than that. Well, it must be the government is correct, because they're the government. And that's how Chevron has hurt a lot of cases, where the government has always been given deference of who is right, who is wrong.
Now they don't have that.
Yes. Now, and you know, of course, it's going to depend on the judge and the district you're in. You know, I wouldn't want to go in front of a judge and put my life on a judge in Maryland, New York, Massachusetts. Who the heck knows? What was that?
No, just
They're making fun of my internet connection.
Oh,
they're trying to say Rich is on dial-up.
So what? And if I take the suppressor issue one step further, so is it possible? Is it Form 1 where I make my own, or is it Form 4?
Form 1.
a
Form
Form
1?
1 is an application to make. You can make or register, or a Form 4 is a transfer. So Form 1 can be used to transfer, but it's also a make, because under the NFA, how do I pay taxes and how do I do everything if I'm not a licensed manufacturer? Well, they came up with the term maker. So when you make something, you're treated like a manufacturer. All about the big dollars.
Wait, with the Chevron decision and a couple of lawsuits, hopefully in the right way, I should be able to make Form 1 a suppressor at my house?
You can do that right now.
They just make it. Technically, you could do that right now, but they make it kind of hard with like their rulings on like solvent traps and stuff like that.
Okay, you don't want to buy a solvent trap and make a suppressor out of a solvent trap, because ATF has classified solvent traps as suppressors.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not as easy as it used to be.
But if I just if I filled out a Form 1, and on where it says, the length and what it's going to be, it says upload pictures, which I think that's such entrapment, because I could just see Bobby in his basement already had it made and uploaded his pictures. So we tell people, no, don't upload pictures, upload drawings. This is what I'm going to make. So
I was about to bring that up.
What's that?
I was about to bring that up. I'm glad that you brought that up.
So upload drawings. And then, like me, I have a machine shop in my garage. I can go down and make a silencer, which silencers, as we all know, are very simple to make. You can buy the tube that you want already in the right dimension. You can buy threads that you can just weld to your tube. You can make it simple, but I'm glad John said that. So don't think about buying solvent traps, which ATF has said if it has a dimple, that it is a silencer. So the
Yeah.
solvent trap has a dimple.
Diversified Machine got in trouble for that.
Now, our argument in the solvent trap case was I can put a Fram oil filter on my gun and it's 3/1000ths of an inch thick. I pull the trigger and I can continue to shoot through it. I cannot put one of these solid pieces of aluminum on my rifle or pistol and pull the trigger and shoot through it. I have to have something sophisticated to drill a center hole. I was not even allowed to say that. I was not allowed to bring up any past ATF opinions. This is how bad the judge was.
Wow.
Yeah. I see Sabar out there. So for Sabar,
Allegedly.
Sabar is one of our viewers that thinks he can say anything he wants. Like, oh, I did this allegedly. It's like, no, that doesn't work.
So, Rick, now that we're busting a bunch of myths, can I go into the 80% rule and ask you a couple of questions? So, as from what I understand, like AK flats are okay, 80% ARs are okay, but polymer 80s are not okay.
They're all okay. Here's a polymer 80. The receiver alone is an 80% nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a nothing. All of them. What they came after polymer 80 was what the new rule says. If I have an 80% plus a buy build kit together, that becomes a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
how about the letter that they sent when they said, "Hey, the frame itself is a firearm"?
Which one was that? In polymer 80, if they classified one as a firearm, then I wouldn't buy that one.
No, but they classified.
Well, they did send.
They sent a letter out the day after Christmas, stating that all polymer lower, like 80% polymers, are now considered firearms.
But see, polymer 80 went back and remade them.
Yeah, that you talk about the bridge frame,
which I haven't even followed their models, but they went back and remade them and resubmitted them to ATF.
Yeah, the bridge frame at SHOT Show, the ATF basically told some people out there, like multiple people, I know like 5 or 6 people, that they were going to come after the bridge frames.
Have they done that already?
Wow.
I think they're going to. Hoffman over there in Fat D,
who used to be there.
Yeah, he told a bunch of people that.
You said Hoffman, right?
Yeah. This is what he told. I know like 5 or 6 people he told there, and Fat D has told this to other people as well since then. That
I haven't seen that in writing, other than possession with the bill kits.
No, they sent a letter out. I can send you the letter.
Sent that letter to someone.
Yeah, it must have been December 22 because it was SHOT Show 23 when they had the bridge frame.
Yeah,
and you guys have that copy?
I do.
Yeah, definitely send it to me.
Yeah, they sent it out to. They did an open letter.
Because I'm working right now with polymer 80.
Yeah, I'll definitely send that to you.
So
it was
basically so
December 27th, 2022, I believe that was the date, because it was Tuesday after Christmas, because the holiday was on the 26th, which was a Monday, so it was that Tuesday. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, because I remember It was SHOT Show 2023 when Polymer 80 had the bridge frame. Actually, I did the first video on the internet with the bridge frame at the booth. So
Yeah, I got it right
it
here.
seems like the ATF has a particular hard-on about the Polymer 80, about the Glock kits, and not so much about AR-15s or AKs.
I'll explain to you why I think is the cause, and they're the ones that created it. In about, I'm going to say 2006, we used to get submissions that says, you know, if you complete this piece of metal to a certain stage, it's not going to be an AR-15 or 1022 or Remington. And everybody would send in their own idea. So Rich would send in, oh, I want to cut the magazine well out, but I'm going to leave the buffer tubes unthreaded. And so there was a wide variety. And the supervisor I had said, hey, why don't we come up with a plan where we just say, if you make it to this stage, then it's not a firearm. I said, you know what? That is a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, I
So
have all the letters.
What's that?
I have all the letters. I did an article where I showed the history of like things being sent in and rejected, things being sent in, rejected. Then the ATF kept on giving hints and hints and hints until you
Yes.
finally were like, just do this.
Yes. And I think it's like 2006.
Yeah.
So we did the
That's
AR-15 and the 1911. Now they're both made of metal. I said if you leave them in this stage, so that's how the modern 80% device product started selling like crazy. Well, I had already gone when the Polymer 80 was submitted. No one thought how easy it is to cut plastic. So when the Polymer 80 was submitted, they used the same standards as the 1911. Well, hell, that was like a pocket knife and a hand drill, and literally you can make a firearm. It is because it's plastic. I mean, you can cut the front out with a pocket knife or a razor blade, and you got the drill bits, and you just drill the drill bits through the. You know, I've seen guys on I'm sure you've seen them also. They're putting these things together in literally minutes, you know, because it's plastic. So shame on ATF for creating this problem. So ATF created the problem. Then years later, now that, you know, at the beginning, there wasn't that many aftermarket Glock parts. Well, now shoot, you can't throw a rock without hitting a store that sells Glock parts, and everybody's coming up with new receiver rail systems and stuff like that. And so instead of going after criminals that are using these and putting them in the criminal hands, they're going after the people that are selling them. And that's what happened. And because criminals like handguns more than rifles, the AR-15 illegally doesn't enter the market as much as the now new Polymer 80 does. So it is now the numbers that they're quoting are not as high as they are because the tracing system is such a debacle that they just give you crap when you request something.
Jordan Vinro, I don't know if you know who he is, but he owns JFC Supply, Gideon Optics, PR Triggers,
Eagle Shows,
Big Reno, and a bunch of other companies. He wants to know, do you think the completion time, should that be a determining factor?
Let me give you a long answer on that.
Okay.
And now my opinion is no, but let me give you a long answer. There was a court case where a gentleman had a World War II type machine gun, and ATF won the case because this was years ago. The technician said, you know, take about 8 hours in a well-equipped machine shop to reactivate this. And the court said, okay, he's got a machine gun then. And so ATF has kind of hung their hat on that. Now, when we were in Firearms Technology Branch, this is one thing that was definitely screwed up. I've got a machinist background. I've been working on guns forever. So when I look at something and say, I can put it together in 45 minutes, does that mean you all can put it together in 45 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
I've cut metal before. I've done these things before. I know how to use hand tools, extremely well. So, but when we were doing the original 80% ARs and 1911s, we said between 45 minutes and an hour and a half was a common time, and common hand tools. Well, what happened? What happened is technology gets ahead of all of us. Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So remember I can't remember his name. He made the first AR-15 receiver cutting fixture, and it was almost $300.
Yeah, it's what used to you would bolt the AR in there, then you would take it,
and I still use it because I have a milling machine, so I can make it look just like the factory did it. So I still use the same fixture, with steel inserts, so the drill bit doesn't elongate the holes or anything. So now I got this fixture. How long is it going to take me to spit out an AR-15? I mean, literally, in a professional manner, cutting it on a milling machine, it takes me between 30 minutes and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I've only done a couple of them.
We have ghost gunners, and you pop that in there, you hit a button.
Yes. So now technology's gotten ahead of everybody, and so the government is pissed off. Well, God damn, it only takes 10, 15 minutes to do that. Well, are you going to start regulating tools? Are you going to say, if you possess this tool in your house, you're a criminal because that's a gun assembly tool?
California has actually passed a law to ban the ghost gunner by name.
And what state is that where you have to get a permit to get a 3D printer now? Massachusetts?
Well, they're trying to. An article that I wrote a while ago is that Amazon, eBay, PayPal, and all these different companies are sending lists to the ATF of people that have purchased 3D printers, and the ATF is looking into these people.
Yeah, that's New York State. They have a special group with the state police.
If it's DHS. DHS is doing it. So DHS is looking, guns are 3D printed guns are illegal in this state. Let's check and pass the information on to the state if we think that they are using the 3D printer to buy guns. So basically, every 2 months they get a list. DHS gets a list from Amazon, eBay, and all these places of people that bought 3D printers in states where 3D printing guns are illegal. And then they are investigating these people, which I think is like a waste of money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pre-crime.
I mean, that's an abuse of the government right there. It's basically regulating your thought process.
It's not federally illegal either.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you have ideas, we're going to regulate your ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm still curious as to, because it seems like you're going down a path on why the polymer 80 is a problem and why like an 80% AR or 1911 isn't a problem.
Well, because how easy it is and the tools that you need to do the polymer. Literally, you just need a hand drill. They always say, well, use a Dremel tool. You don't need a Dremel tool. You need a pocket knife and a file.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need. You could, with a hand drill, you drill the back holes, you shave off the front part for the rails, and use a pocket knife to cut out the inside of the dust cover. And it may not be pretty, but it's going to suffice.
Yep.
And so because it's so simple, I hate to say it, then other people start looking at ways to sell these things. They start saying, well, here's a source. But here's a huge problem. And I don't mention names or anything, but I helped a public defender on, and we knew the guy was going to go to jail. He was making. Have you seen these new drop-in auto sears that they're made of plastic? They 3D print them. I call it. It looks like a snail.
Yeah, Yankee Boogles.
What they call Yankee Boogles.
Yeah, that's what they're called.
Yes.
This was a young guy, 25, 26 years old, and he was selling the crap out of drop-in auto sears.
Now, if I don't say his name, but I say what he called them. I know the case you're talking about.
You could and couldn't. Was it in North Carolina?
They were called portable wall hangers.
I never heard that term, but that doesn't mean because I don't get involved with the case.
There was one guy selling. Yeah, there was one guy selling them and claiming they were wall hangers.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah.
So anyway, the way he got caught was there's like a guy who's trying to work off his time. He's like what do you call it? A confidential informant, and he tells the agent, said, "Look, I got this guy at the bar, and he's telling me as many as I want. He'll sell them to me." So he starts buying from this guy. And this guy doesn't have a speeding ticket. He's not a criminal. He's just making extra spending money. He found a niche to make extra spending money.
You were talking about the same case.
And so the public defender called me up and very polite. She said, basically she needed instruction and on what to do. So we met. ATF was extremely polite. And we sat down and I went through all of the different items and told her, yes, this is legit. He's got short barrel rifles, he's got this many machine guns, he's got this many Glock machine guns. And these young people do not realize, I really believe, they do not realize what they're doing. They think they're so cool and so smooth. He's telling the public defender, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. They're not machine guns. Don't worry, just don't worry about it. The first offer they made him was 30 years. Plead guilty to 30 years. This is so. She asked me what advice would I give him. I said, you better go tell him that he's going to have to roll over on somebody, or he's going to go to jail forever. So this young guy ended up getting 6 years in prison for making extra money. And had a wife and a child. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that whether it's responsibility or not, that and I'm going to tell another kind of horror story here in a little bit, that they need to be doing public notices about this because these kids are buying these 3D printers. Shit, you can get a really decent 3D printer for $5,000 now. A decent one.
For $5,000? No, for under $1,000.
You can get
but that's not making quality stuff. That's what you're making quality.
No, for under $1,000, you can get something that makes probably the same level of quality as anything on the market.
Is it that cheap now?
Oh yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. Yes. And it's like the Apple of 3D printers. So Bamboo printers, I have 2 of them. It literally is like the Apple of 3D printers.
Yeah, you set it up now and it does everything out of the box. There's no tuning or anything. It's ready to go.
Yeah, 20 minutes after you cut the box open, you're printing.
All right, where are you getting the programs from?
They're all over the place.
It's all included. It's all included.
No, man, if somebody wants to load a drop-in auto sear.
Oh, there's tons of different places. I mean, you can get it. I mean, there's probably 1,000 websites out there that have it.
I believe it. And that's a big problem now because these young people don't understand what a 10-year felony means. It just doesn't sit in their head. So they say, I'll make a couple of these and go sell them.
Well, we have a friend who sold 30 of them to the government. They did
this was in New York State. They had a buyback, and he printed. No, he.
Yeah, and they said if you bring him in, you have complete amnesty.
Amnesty.
And we'll give you $200.
I think he got $20,000 on the buyback.
Yeah. So They said they're gonna give him $200 per machine gun that you turn in, complete amnesty. So he said, "All right," and he printed out a bunch of Yankee Boogles to take like
Why don't you try
10,
a
20
couple
minutes.
hundred?
Yeah, and got $20,000 in gift
That
cards.
is cool as hell.
Yeah, so you have a picture of him with all his gift cards. But yeah, they offered amnesty,
Yeah, might as well do it.
I got to tell you, if that was me, like I forget where I think you rode from like North Carolina to Albany or Buffalo, some area like that. I would have had to have a diaper on. I would have.
I'm not going to say exactly what state he lives in, but he drove across several states.
I wouldn't have drove. The one state that really, in my opinion, is the worst one is New Jersey. That is the absolute worst one, where I think cops are just abject criminals.
Yeah. But yeah, after he did it, the next amnesty they offered, they specifically said that they're not going to accept anymore.
I used to work for a law firm in New Jersey, and every time I drove to New Jersey, I would go to my vehicle, because one green tipped M855.
Oh shoot!
Think about it. That's a felony.
Yeah, that happened to some guy in DC.
My car is my range car, so I go through it. Find extra pistol. I'm just joking. Guns, magazines, everything at the high capacity magazine. I drive through Maryland, DC, and New Jersey, and get pulled over.
Here's the interesting thing about Maryland. I'm actually a certified Maryland firearms instructor and stuff, and I can teach concealed carry for Maryland and Maryland class. You are allowed to have so-called high capacity magazines in Maryland. You're just not allowed to buy them in Maryland. So you are technically allowed to drive into Virginia, buy a high capacity magazine, and drive back into Maryland.
Well, that didn't even make any sense. Where you have the law?
It's their law is purchase or transfer within the state of Maryland, but they allow you to buy it outside the state. You can't mail it in there, but you have to carry it across. So basically, if you're in Maryland, you're allowed to drive into Virginia, buy a 30-round magazine, and drive back into Virginia. I mean,
Maryland.
It's still restricted, but at least you have a way out.
Yeah, well, like Colorado is interesting because you can buy a 30-round magazine as long as it's disassembled. They're allowed to ship it to you.
Yeah, I pulled up the Colorado state laws when I was doing some work for another company because they were concerned about shipping them into Colorado. And I actually had to call Colorado because I was like, this can't be for real. So, I called the Colorado State Police and they explained everything to me. Said, yes.
Yeah, you can take it apart, ship it on, have it. It takes like less than a minute to reassemble.
Yeah.
20, 30 seconds. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, right?
Well, and that's what is happening today. These gun laws are only affecting us. These states are passing laws that do not affect one single criminal because they don't care.
Right.
Look. I mean, come on. There was 100 people shot and 17 killed over 4th of July in Chicago. Do you think any one of those guys did a background check or cared if he had a high cap magazine or had a machine gun? No.
Nope.
Because for one thing, he's not going to be prosecuted. They're going to pull him in and pull him out.
We have another question for you about the 7 and 6 ban, and then we're going to wrap up here.
That is a 5.45 by 39 steel core, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can tell you is I was just spoken to somebody today about this, and I was asked if I would participate in a lawsuit. And so I'm going to tell you just historically how it got and why it got banned. But I'm not going to get into too much of the technical or I hate to use the term legal because I'm not an attorney, but the legal side of it. what happened was the regulation on armor piercing is the makeup of the ammunition if there's a pistol in that caliber. So ATF had passed numerous 5.54 by 39 caliber handguns, and they forgot about the ammunition. So I think it was Stacy Prentius, PW Arms, was bringing in like 6 million rounds of this, and Customs pulled the ammunition and said, "Hey, this is armor piercing," and he had approved Form 6. He even asked ATF, "Is this legal before I get my Form 6 approved?" And they said yes, 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 and yes. So they sent the ammunition into the Firearms Technology Branch. Firearms Technology Branch takes it apart. It's got a steel core. So is there a pistol in that caliber? Yes, there is. So under the statute, that ammunition automatically becomes armor-piercing ammunition and is non-importable. So Stacy sued, lost all kinds of money, because then you lost all the ammunition is still sitting in port somewhere because they don't know what to do with it now because nobody wants to go burn it up. So my opinion on it is the armor piercing statute is wrong. It was written strictly to satisfy the Democrats because I know you probably don't believe that. They wanted.
No, I believe it. I 100%. I read the whole history behind the ban.
Yeah, and I have the whole history, and I wrote numerous papers on armor piercing ammunition, and that's how. Why is the solid copper by Barnes Bullet not AP? Because he sued and said, "I'm making hunt," and they said, "Okay, we'll grant a carve out." So molybdenum copper is illegal, but other copper is not. What's molybdenum copper? It's used in nuclear facilities. Who the hell can get that? So they satisfied Barnes's Democrat, congressmen or senators in the state that he's in, and he's making money hand over fist, making solid copper bullets, but you can't shoot a pistol round that has a steel jacket that's 25% of the weight of the projectile. Which one do you think has more penetration?
A lot of stuff doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So that's my opinion on this, on the whole definition, but it looks like somebody may be taking it up and try to get this fixed, which I don't think it will. Even the Republicans, if the law's in place, they never take it away.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's usually the case. All right, Rick, I want to thank you for coming on. When you want to tell everyone where they can find you at?
Hey, it's easy to find me. All my information is on my LinkedIn account or my website. I do a lot of NFA and importing and manufacturing work for the firearms industry. That I work, as high as SIG all the way down to the guy in the corner. And of course, there's different rates for different people. The big guys pay more than the little guys. So if you need assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
All right.
And I dropped the link to your website in the chat.
I was about to say that. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. Prayers for Dark. If you don't know, Dark Dad has passed away this morning. So he'll be off for a little while. Dark's one of our we're like the three amigos, Rich, Dark, and I. So he won't be around for a little bit, but so just send out some prayers for him. I have a video that's going to be debuting right now. If you guys want to watch the video, just stay in the chat and you'll be automatically redirected over there. And
real quick, guys, before I take off, if you get a chance, like next week or week after, we'd like to discuss machine guns, dealer cell samples, because a lot of people are getting jacked up right now. I don't know if you guys heard Bradley Wint just got sentenced to 5 years. That was a sheriff in Iowa. And there's going to be a lot of people get jacked up. I'd like to get this clarified, just try to keep people from getting in trouble.
Yeah. You're welcome back, Rick.
Rich, can you schedule them for?
Sure.
Richard will get with you and schedule. I'm terrible at scheduling people, so Rich will take care of that.
And just give me a call tomorrow, Rich. We'll talk offline about those receivers.
Okay.
All right, guys, that is
All right,
it.
have a good evening.
I'll see you guys later.